Giannis didn't scream a trade request, he set a timer. I'm locked in, unless 6 or 7 months change everything. August whispers say New York listened. Is this leverage, or the first breadcrumb of a blockbuster? Let's follow the trailand what it really means for Milwaukee. Here's what actually landed. Stripped of the noise, reporting from ESPN and SNY's Ian Begley indicated the Knicks and Bucks held cursory conversations in August. No, it wasn't advanced. No, it wasn't a swap of star for star with a press release, half-written, but conversations exist for a reason. They map the price, the appetite, the boundaries. Meanwhile, the line out of national reporting was even sharper. If Giannis ever considered a move, New York was the lone destination on his list. That's rare clarity in a league of hedged answers. For the Knicks, that validation alone matters, because it justifies keeping the phone warm even after other summer business closed. The detail that the talks were not advanced is exactly what makes executives listen. It means there's still room for escalation. Or for nothing at all. But a rumor is just a spark until the star himself supplies oxygen. Giannis didn't promise forever. He promised focus for now. I'm locked into this team. Now, if in 6 or 7 months I change my mind, that's human. One sentence, 2 ripples. Inside the locker room, it reads like confidence. I'm here. I'm competing. Let's go. In the front office, it reads like a countdown. You've got a finite window to look like a real contender. No tantrum. No trade demand. Just a clock quietly placed in the middle of the season. That's the power of framing. Stars don't need to shout when timing does the talking. A line like that sets expectations for everyone. Coaches know the margin for sloppy stretches is gone. Role players feel the urgency to tighten details, rotations, defensive reads, late game execution. Medical staff hears it as, keep the core upright when it matters. And the GM hears the loudest part, upgrade paths can't be theoretical anymore. Around the league, that same sentence does something else. It invites imagination. Rivals start tinkering with spreadsheets. Scouts slide prospects into hypothetical packages. Agents test the water on what available might cost if the standings wobble. Not because Giannis is leaving, because he just defines when belief has to be earned. For New York, the message is almost a form of permission. Keep the lines warm. Don't blow up your new identity, but don't hang up the phone if Milwaukee ever asks for creativity. The Knicks don't need noise. They need clarity on what enough would even mean if the door cracked open. After their own summer splash, they have less draft ammo but more proof of concept on the floor. That matters in conversations where fit and timeline weigh as much as raw picks. So the sentence wasn't dramatic. It was designed, a calm tone with sharp edges. Deliver now, make May feel possible, and this never becomes more than a headline. Fail that test, and the calendar does what it always does. It turns whispers into meetings. And, speaking of New York, their own summer changed the math on what they can offer and what they should never touch. New York didn't just add a wing. They installed a spine. The Bridges move gave them another two-way engine who fits next to their lead guard without stealing his oxygen. It also cashed in a chunk of their cleanest draft capital. That's the trade-off. The team on the floor is better now, but the checkbook for future mega swings isn't bottomless anymore. So what's actually left? Enough to make calls, just not enough to strong-arm the room alone. The Knicks still have picks, swaps, and useful rotation players who hold value around the league, but fewer pristine, unencumbered firsts to stack in a single pile. Practically, that pushes any star pursuit toward creative architecture. 3-team builds, delayed compensation, and packages where a non-Knicks prospect becomes the real sweetener while New York supplies depth and later year assets. Fit matters as much as price. Post-Bridges, the Knicks finally have an identity that scales in the playoffs. Multiple ball handlers, switchable wings, and spacing that doesn't collapse when the first set dies. You don't detonate that to chase a headline. Any conversation has to preserve the blueprint. Keep your on-ball engine, keep your perimeter defense intact, and keep enough shooting so the paint doesn't become quicksand. If a deal forces you to unlearn your progress, it isn't a deal. It's a reset. There's also the politics of a locker room that's tasted momentum. You can't spend a summer proving you're ready to win and then tell the group they're just placeholders. The front office knows this. It's why New York can be aggressive without being reckless. They finally have something to protect. Bottom line, after Bridges, New York is still a player, just a different kind. Less sledgehammer, more scalpel. If the door ever cracks on a superstar, they'll need partners, precision, and a package that upgrades without hollowing out the thing. That made them dangerous. Which brings us to Milwaukee's side of the ledger where the pick math forces a choice, and every buyer has to pay the toll. Milwaukee's problem isn't just winning games, it's owning its future, because past deals pushed out first-round control deep into the next decade. The Bucks can't simply pivot into a clean rebuild and enjoy the draft benefits. That math forces a binary choice in any nightmare scenario. Stay dangerous now, or buy back the right to reset. Dore, stay dangerous. If Giannis ever became truly gettable, Milwaukee's opening bid is help us win tonight. That means proven two-way players, a secondary creator who doesn't melt in May, and roll pieces that lift the floor on defense and shooting. Picks still matter for optics, but bodies matter more. You're paying to keep the lights bright around the pieces that remain, because a market like Milwaukee can't afford a half-decade in the wilderness. Door B. Rebuild with the right to rebuild. This is the surgical route. You construct a 3-team deal where the pick-holding gatekeepers return Milwaukee's own firsts or meaningful control over them, in exchange for premium compensation from the buyer. The Bucks don't tank for the headline, they tank for payouts that actually land in their account. Without that, losing is just losing. Either door is expensive for a suitor. Door A drains your rotation and tests your depth. Door B bleeds future capital and sweetens a third team that doesn't care about your PR cycle. That's why we'll just wait for free agency is a fantasy. The leverage lives with the team that must be made whole and the teams that can make them whole. For a price, so Milwaukee's dilemma becomes everyone else's tax. You want the superstar, you solve the Bucks timeline. You want a discount, you're in the wrong store. And that's where the quiet power brokers enter the pick gatekeepers who can unlock or block any blockbuster before it ever hits your timeline. Every star chase has a villain in a nice suit, the team that holds your target's future picks. They don't tweet, they don't posture. They just sit on the leverage everyone needs and wait for the market to get desperate. In this story, the middlemen aren't buying the superstar. They're selling the permission for a deal to exist. Here's the game. When a franchise like Milwaukee needs either immediate winning pieces or its own draft control back, the path runs through a third team, the gatekeeper that currently owns those picks or swaps. That team never trades on sympathy. They trade on scarcity. You want to make the Bucks whole. Cool. Pay the toll. The price is rarely subtle. A blue-chip prospect, a premium first, or a swap structure that protects them on the downside. And because multiple buyers might line up for Giannis if the standings wobble, gatekeepers can spark a bidding war without ever touching the headliner. Speculation around the league often points to clubs with stockpiled assets and control over rival futures as natural gatekeepers. They don't need the superstar themselves. They want the haul that comes from facilitating the superstar's movement. It's clean business. Flip rights you already own into players and picks. You actually need while the buyer and seller take the PR heat. This is why just wait for free agency rarely holds up. If the clock is ticking and the standings aren't friendly, buyers don't want to gamble a year of a superstar's prime on hope. They'd rather pay the toll now, lock in certainty, and let the cap sheet scream later. Gatekeepers don't create rumors. They capitalize on them. The moment a star's timeline gets fuzzy, phones light up quietly. And that's the final piece of power in these deals. Not the assets, but the information, which leads to the next question: who's feeding the cycle? And why do certain leaks hit right before a season tips? In this league, the loudest messages rarely come from podiums. They come from placement: which reporter, what phrasing, and when it lands. Reports claim agent channels started humming around the combine and never really went quiet. Teams checking in, interest rampant, frameworks kicked around. None of that says a deal is imminent. It says the market is being reminded that one could exist. Why do it now? Timing is a weapon. Drop a clean line from the star, 6 or 7 months, and you've just drawn a circle on the calendar. Follow it with uncredited nudges that a specific destination would be acceptable, and suddenly, 2 pressure fronts form at once. Milwaukee feels the need to look like a top-tier outfit by spring. Rival GMS feel the need to prepare instead of fantasize. The leak doesn't guarantee movement. It guarantees urgency. Industry belief is that agents steer a ton of this because it protects the star's public posture. The player can say, "I'm locked in," while the ecosystem quietly gathers prices, tests, partners, and measures which teams are actually serious. It's not sneaky, it's standard. And because the offseason is where cap sheets can flex. Late summer whispers carry extra weight. Depth charts are fresh. Picks are mostly unspent. Optimism is unbruised. You can still tell a story that ends in contender status. Horror, a bold pivot there. For fans, leaks feel like smoke. For decision makers, they're signals. Who calls back fast? Who asks the right questions? Who offers a third team unlock without being prompted? The answers become a private power ranking for the months ahead. None of this means Giannis is bolting. It means the clock is real, the lanes are mapped, and the league has been prompted to act like adults if the standings wobble. We've seen pressure campaigns end in loyalty before Duncan, but this time the structure around Milwaukee changes how that story might rhyme. We've seen this movie with different actors. Kobe went on live TV in scorched earth, done with the Lakers, jersey staying in the closet. He didn't leave. The front office moved fast, landed the right co-star, and the anger cooled into banners. Tim Duncan toured Orlando, liked the pitch, and nearly signed. Then a single detail and a familiar voice popped steadiness tilted him back to San Antonio. And another era took shape. The lesson isn't that stars bluff. It's that pressure can harden a plan or crack it. Giannis's version is quieter but sharper. He didn't threaten. He dated the ultimatum. That matters in a modern CBA world where flexibility is thinner. Penalties bite harder, and we'll fix it later gets expensive fast. Milwaukee's margin for error is slimmer than those old scripts. Their pick control is tangled, their timeline is tied to keeping a top 2 player satisfied, and their path to a clean reset runs through teams that can charge a toll. That's a different labyrinth than the one Kobe and Tim navigated. There's also the health and coaching variable. Kobe's rescue hinged on a seamless fit and elite availability. Duncan's comfort hinged on a system he trusted. For Milwaukee, the equation is broader. Keep Giannis healthy. Stabilize the rotation, maximize shot creation around him, and show defensive teeth when games slow down. If those boxes get checked by spring, this whole saga looks like a motivational arc. If they don't, the same sentence that calmed October becomes the headline that dictates February. So yes, history rhymes. Superstar applies pressure. Franchise responds or risks a chapter break. But the chorus is new picks, penalties, and middlemen, which is why the next part matters most. What real offers might signal win now armor for Milwaukee, or a surgical path to buy back their future. Start with the disclaimer. Everything here is conceptual. No offer sheets, no handshake deals, just the kinds of shapes executives sketch when a top 2 player even might be available. With that out of the way, there are 2 families of frameworks, and each one says something about Milwaukee's intentions. Win now armor. Speculative. This is Milwaukee refusing to dim the lights. Think multiple playoff-ready wings. A secondary creator who can hold water in clutch time, and reliable shooting that doesn't break the defensive identity. Picks appear for optics, but the meat is rotation certainty, guys who play 30 minutes in May without blinking. These constructions typically cost the buyer depth and cohesion. You don't keep your whole core and add young. If a suitor pushes this path, they're announcing, title window opens today, and they'll eat the tax consequences later. For Milwaukee, accepting this route says, we're not resetting. We're reshaping. Pick return, surgery speculative. Here, a third team unlocks Milwaukee's future by returning control of key firsts, swaps at a price. The buyer parts with premium future capital and a prospect the middleman actually wants. The message shifts. We're willing to step back to step forward, because now being bad would finally pay you back. If this path emerges, it's the Bucks choosing clarity over limbo. Either way, watch the tells. If talks center on premium defenders and on-ball relief, it's win. If the headlines revolve around gatekeeper demands and multi-team logistics, it's surgery. And for a team like New York Post-Bridges, any participation almost certainly requires partners a non-Knicks blue-chip sweetener, delayed pick ladders, and surgical protections that don't gut the identity they just built. So no, we're not predicting a trade. We're decoding what each template would mean if the standings wobbled. Because, in the end, the packages matter less than the proof. What Milwaukee shows by spring that makes all of this feel unnecessary. Strip away the noise, and you're left with the simplest test in basketball. Convince your best player he can win here. Not in theory, not on a whiteboard, on the floor, by spring. That's why one sentence about 6 or 7 months moved markets. It created a scoreboard that isn't just wins and losses, it's belief. If Milwaukee looks formidable, this narrative dissolves the way so many almost trades do. If they wobble, the phone lines get loud again. And every executive who did their homework in August will be ready to talk in February. The question isn't Knicks or bust. It's whether the Bucks can make the conversation unnecessary before the timer hits 0.